This video is for the 1 and 2-step equations foldable. And so we're going to review what we know about equations, and we're going to solve by hand. So when we solve an equation, we're doing the opposite, and we do PEMDAS backwards as well. So we always get rid of the addition and subtraction first, and then we get rid of the multiplication. So if we've got m plus 12, what I need to do is to get the variable by itself. And so to get the variable by itself, to do the opposite, I would subtract 12 from both sides. So the 12 would cancel here, and then 10 minus 12 would leave me with a -2. So on number 2, the same thing. Again, we're doing the opposite here, so I need to get rid of the -9. So I would do the opposite. So I would add 9 to both sides. So remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So this would cancel, and then -2 and a +9 would give me a 7. So now in multiplication, again, we do the opposite. So -7y means we're multiplying by a -7. So we would divide both sides by a -7. So here we would have y equals 13. And then when you see a fraction set up like this, it's division. So to get rid of division, you would multiply both sides by 9. So then these would cancel, and I would have a equals -36. To kind of show you how these fractions work. So if I have a over 9 and I multiply it by 9, it's the same as me multiplying by 9 over 1. And so if I've got the same thing on the bottom over here as the top over here, these cancel out. And I'm left with a over 1. And anytime I'm dividing by 1, it's just whatever the numerator is. So now we're getting into fractions. So here I've got 2/3 x equals 10. So we're multiplying by the 2/3. So I can divide by the 2/3, but with fractions, you can also multiply by the reciprocal. So if I multiply by 3/2, just like I showed you above, the 3's would cancel this way, and the 2's would cancel this way. And then I would have to multiply this side by 3/2 as well. And you can use your calculator to do the math part of this. So if I would do 10 times 3 over 2, I would get 15. So x equals 15. So same thing here, we're multiplying by it. So if I multiply by the reciprocal, the 9's would cancel and the 4's would cancel. So I'd be left with w equals, and then we can do -8 times 9 over 4, and w equals -18. All right, so this time I'm multiplying by a -6/5. So again, the reciprocal would be -5/6, so these would cancel, and 12 times -5/6 would give me a -10, and then the same thing here. This time I'm just going to multiply by a -2, because the reciprocal would be -2 over 1, but again, if we have it over 1, it's the same as just the numerator. So this cancels, so m would equal +18. So now we're going to move to 2-step equations. So for 2-step equations, undo the addition and the subtraction first to remove the constant, and then we undo the multiplication and the division to remove the coefficient. So addition and subtraction first. So here I've got 6x plus 8. So I want to get rid of the 8. So I'm going to subtract that from both sides. And 50 minus 8 would leave me with 42. And then I would divide by the 6. So x would equal 7. All right, so here I've got -5, so the opposite of -5. I would add 5 to both sides. So 11 plus 5 is 16. Then I would divide by the 2. And so x would equal 8. Now, to go back and check these, what you can do is you can take 8 and you can plug it into here. You could do 2 times 8 minus 5. And you should get what's on the other side of the equation. So that's one way that you can check these. All right, so here I've got plus 9. So I would subtract the 9 from both sides. So I would have 4 equals a negative 4x, because these cancel. And then I would divide by a negative 4 and divide by a negative 4. So 4 divided by negative 4 is a negative 1, and that would equal x. So now I've got 7 minus 3x. So this is still a positive. This would be like a positive 7. So to do the opposite of a positive 7, I would subtract the 7. So this cancels. I've still got a negative 3x, and 34 minus 7 would give me 27. Then I can divide by the negative 3. This cancels, and x would equal negative 9. All right, now we've got some fractions involved, but I still have a minus 7, so the addition and the subtraction first. So always doing the opposite. So this cancels, so 9 plus 7 would give me a 16. Now to do the opposite here, remember if it's x divided by 2, we would just multiply by 2. And so these cancel, and then x would equal 32. All right, so here we've got a plus 8, so we would subtract 8 from both sides. So 11 minus 8 would give us a 3, and then I would have an x over a negative 5, and those cancel. So I'm dividing by negative 5, so to do the opposite, I multiply both sides by negative 5. So negative 5 times 3 is a negative 15. These cancel, and I have x. All right, so some more fractions here, but again, addition and subtraction first. So we're going to subtract the 22 from both sides. This cancels, and I'm left with 6. And remember, we can multiply by the reciprocal. So these cancel, and x would equal 10. And then one more like this, so we're going to subtract the 1 from both sides. Negative 7 and a negative 1 gives me a negative 8. And then do the opposite here. So the reciprocal would be negative 3 over 1, or just multiply by a negative 3. It would be the same thing. So these cancel here, and then negative 8 times negative 3 would give me a positive 24. And then we've got a few more examples down here at the bottom. So number 13 down here, 4/3 x plus 25 equals 33. So the addition and the subtraction first. And 33 minus 25 leaves me with an 8. And then again, we're multiplying by the reciprocal. And so I would have x equals 6. So in this one, addition and subtraction first. So this would cancel. 18 and a negative 13 would give me a 5. Multiply by the reciprocal. So this would cancel and this would cancel. So x would equal 8. And so here's another one, kind of one of those fraction tips. 5 is the same as 5 over 1. And if I multiply it by 8 over 5, these 5 cancel, and I'm left with 8 over 1, or just the 8. So let me focus one more time here for you. All right, so again, addition and subtraction first. So we subtract the 53 from both sides. These cancel. 59 minus 53 gives me a 6. Multiply by the reciprocal. So these cancel. And x would equal negative 9. All right, so here I've got subtraction. So the opposite of subtraction is addition. So I would have 12 equals 4/5 x. And then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. And so I would have 15. So these would all cancel, but I'm still left with the x. And all right, so we're going to do addition first. So the opposite of addition is subtraction. These cancel. And then a negative 22 minus 41 gives me a negative 63. Multiply by the reciprocal. So these cancel. And negative 63 times negative 8/3 would give me 168. And then finally, here's one of those that's kind of backwards. So remember, this 28 is a positive. So to get rid of a positive, we do the opposite, which is a negative. So 34 minus 28 would give me a 6. These cancel. And then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Don't forget your negative signs. Make sure you're attaching those where they need to be. And so here we would have a negative 15. These cancel, but I'm left with the x. So that's it for this video.